Welcome back, listeners, to another episode of the New Standard. And before we jump into the program, I want to say big up to my co-host Neal Coolong. What's happening, Neal?
I'm recovering after a long night of, as we discussed off air, not drinking for the game, but just staying up, watching the whole thing. All the work stuff that comes with it. The primetime games are the toughest in this business, but they're often the most enjoyable and the most memorable. So it's a fun kind of fatigue, but yeah, it's a long haul going from the ending of a game into transitioning to the next one. I'm kind of in that process right now.
Big up to everybody that's on the program that's hopped in live. Big up to Ali Howard, Species 5618, Marcus J, and big up to Double H. And also, if anybody's been impacted by Hurricane Henry, our thoughts and prayers are with you. So far, Double H is saying that Hurricane Henry is overrated, and that's a good thing. So hopefully, no one has been greatly impacted by Hurricane Henry, the storm that's hitting the East Coast. Also, want to send a big shout out to all of the show sponsors. Nothing but Bud Butter, Assist to Score, Great Dads versus Everybody, and Shop Supreme Queen. And also want to dedicate this program to my lovely wife. We will be celebrating our 21st/22nd anniversary this week. So I want to give a big shout out to my Supreme Queen, Linda Williams. And also want to give a big shout out to all the parents, or, just to send, warm tidings to all the parents who have college age children traveling, and travel mercies to you who have kids traveling back to school and back to school from colleges and so on and so forth. And for everybody out there in Steeler Nation, make sure you're being as healthy as possible. Please be responsible and make sure that we can transition out of this pandemic in a safe way. The main topic of this program, and of course, you can catch the show on YouTube, the New Standard, and all podcast platforms. Excuse me. The topic of this program is a 3-0 start a harbinger of things to come? Did I get it right?
Harbinger.
I messed it up again.
How did you practice it correctly for an hour and then get it wrong?
I have no idea. I practiced it for an hour. And I have it written out phonetically on my notes, and I still flubbed it to start the show. Harbinger. I wrote it out HAR-BEN-GER. I wrote BEN so I could say Ben. Harbinger. Harbinger of things to come. So, Neal, is a 3-0 preseason start a harbinger of things to come? Does it say anything? Should the fan base read more into it? Should they read nothing into it? What does a 3-0 preseason start say to you? And is it a harbinger of things to come in the 2021-22 NFL season for the Pittsburgh Steelers?
I like the word harbinger for it because it's suggesting this is one part of something. There is no correlation between preseason success or failure and where your team is going to end up. Famously, everyone's going to say the Lions, the year that they went 0-16, went 4-0 in the preseason. It's not so much about winning the games. It's about looking at the full effort of what we saw. And last night, in particular, what we saw was a Steelers first-team offense that had little to no challenge. They were stopped by nobody except for themselves, which we saw in the first drive. False start penalty to start the game, drop pass on third down. They could have scored on that drive as well. Ben Roethlisberger was lights out. That's legitimately one of the best we'll ever see him play. Again, I understand it's preseason. It's not all of the Lions ones that are out there, and the Lions are not exactly threats to win the NFC North this year, to put it mildly. But he made the reads he needed to make. He had pinpoint accuracy in his throws. He made the correct decisions, and he got the ball well downfield. They also ran when he was in there. They did play action. That's not something we typically see of Ben. They put a lot out there, and I think what this means overall for the team, you look at the fluidity of it, the process of communication, the crispness of the plays that they ran. Those are all good things, and that's not opponent specific. They didn't game plan for the Lions. They weren't trying. They're running the things that they knew they were going to run. There was one play in particular I saw, kind of a variation of the Steelers' classic 22 double, which is really just two pulling offensive lineman, a tight end coming in to fill. We saw winning blocks from everybody on the line, including Eric Ebron, which is not something we see very often. Kevin Dotson had a great block. We saw Zach Banner, one of the few moments that he's had in the preseason. He had a great block on it. And Najee Harris went for 7-8 yards, I think it was, on a nice secondary move. These are all good things. These portray a strong step forward in where we thought, you and I, Lance, where this offense was going to be this season. I'm a lot more encouraged now than I have been. And it's going to come with its bad times. There were bad reps we saw on offense as well. But overall, I definitely think it's a good sign for where this team is going and where it needs to be come week one on the road in a hostile environment against a very good football team. They're not playing the Lions in week one, and they're getting all of the Bills' number ones. So if they are able to execute on the vast majority of their plays, which they need to be able to do, they could have a shot to pull off what's probably an upset. They're 6.5-point dogs against the Bills. The Bills weren't that far off from going to the Super Bowl. Wow. So they're going to get tested a lot in week one. And I feel legitimately that's probably going to be a loss. I don't like their chances in that game at all. But I think they have the ability to take away some positive things from that. And they should feel confident about it based on their performance in their first 3 drives offensively last night.
When I look at the game and I look at the word, I'm going to keep saying it, Harbinger. Now that I got it right, I'm going to say it over and over and over again. When I think of Harbinger and of things to come, I look at it this way. And I agree with you that preseason results aren't a legitimate way to predict how a season's going to go. I think we've seen that. I think there's a lot of historical evidence that proves that to be a true statement. Had the Steelers looked absolutely terrible, though, you could take something from that. Had you seen line busts, lack of communication, Ben getting hit several times in early series.
You see the Lions playing the way they did.
Exactly. Essentially, you're absolutely right. So for me not to be verbose, thank you, Neal. You hit it on the head. If the Steelers looked like the Lions looked, you should be concerned. Now, it's definitely not a harbinger of how they might perform in the regular season, but you should be concerned. Preseason games should be layups. You should just be looking, like you said, for crisp execution, guys to perform in an above the line manner, no injuries, some fluidity, some of the things that you mentioned. And if you don't see that, I think that's much more of a telltale sign of how your team may perform in the regular season, or it may also show you it might take some time before your team gets it right. Sort of, and I hate to bring up the Patriots, sort of like how, Bill Belichick, in the last few years, since some of the rules in terms of training camp and how much contact and hitting you can do in camp has changed, he's kind of used the first 4 games as a way to continue to mold and shape and prepare his team. And from that point on, sort of after that first quarter mark, you see the team change and start to play differently. So I think had you seen the Steelers play like the Lions in the game, it would be cause for concern. And the concern would be, how long is it going to take for this team to get crisp and play well? But I think what you saw—
they don't have any time left. Keep that in mind.
Yeah, and there's no time left. And camp is over. And so I think you can be encouraged by how Ben looked, how the team looked, the communication, the crispness on offense. They played very well on defense. They got pressure. So it's a good sign of things to come. And it's a good sign more so that I think they're going to be prepared and locked into play week one. Let's jump into the first big question of the show, though. Should Ben Roethlisberger have started against the Lions? And I thought about talking about this because there was a long article written by Ed Bouchette of The Athletic. And he made some solid points about Ben not starting that I kind of agreed with. I think it was good to see Ben play well. Ben play very crispy, as Ali Howard, Species 5618, said, very crispy. I'm very encouraged. It was great to see that. However, And I understand the trust that the Steelers have in Ben Roethlisberger being an 18-year veteran, that he could protect himself in the game and get through the game clean. I was just a little nervous. I was just a little nervous of how much upside was there to gain from Ben playing a few series as opposed to the injury risk. And I understand it's football and guys are going to get injured, but I wouldn't have minded had he not played and I saw that crispness of the offense in the first game. So my thought was, although he played well, and I'm very encouraged that he played well, and for me, the mobility that he showed was most encouraging to me. I know he can throw the football. I think the accuracy, the ball placement in the red zone was excellent. I was most encouraged by his mobility, but I was just a little uncertain. I was just a little concerned, a little scared that is it really worth him playing in this game? If he gets a knock, he gets a ding or anything, let's just get the old man to week one and let's just see what it does. Let it do what it do. So I was in agreement with Ed Bouchette that I didn't think he should have played. Do you think he should have played in the game against the Lions?
I do. There's a lot that goes into the overall coordination of a team that's preparing for something. It's not about Ben needing stadium reps. The 18-year veteran, he knows what he needs to do. It's about the others who were there in a very young offense with a new offensive coordinator, with several new coaches. It's about everybody understanding how it's going to work during a game with the guys who are supposed to be out there.
Great point.
My thought was going into the game, it's up to Ben. Does Ben want to do this? Does Ben feel that he needs that kind of chemistry? Because the other guys have been out there. They've worked now with Matt Canada. Many of them never worked with Randy Fichtner. So it's all new to them anyway. They got the reps. They've been needing to get the reps. But it's not as if, the first team offense did a series in practice and then sat. They worked the whole training camp. They got a lot of the technical stuff, what they need to do, the ability to stop the play and discuss what just happened. They need the dress rehearsal to make sure everything is going to come together the way that they want it to as they transition out of training camp and into what's left of the preseason, final cuts, practice leading into the season, and then getting ready for week one. So in my mind, I think they hope to get 2 good series out of Ben. I said after the first one, you got kind of cheated. Ebron dropped that pass that he shouldn't have. He needs another series at least. You've got to put something together. And Ben was lights out in the second series. I mean, he just dominated. He knew everything that was going on. Those are scripted plays, I'm sure. They look good. I thought they were going to get him out after that. They put him back out for a third series, and he was even better in that series. It's like, okay, now he absolutely has to go. They've gone through I forgot the count, but I think it was 15 plays, somewhere in there. Probably all the plays that they would have wanted Ben to run with the rest of the offense. And again, I'm saying Ben as if he's the centralized figure here. It's not just him. It's the center that he hasn't worked with. It's the tackles who haven't played in the positions that they're in. It's the new guards. It's the receivers that are coming into this role or that role. Washington's in Claypool. I don't think Claypool played at all. I think he dressed, but he didn't play.
He didn't play.
Lots of guys need that experience with the quarterback. They need that experience with each other. You need to put all of that together, at least for a little bit, to get a good dry run in to see where you are. And part of that helps you prepare for week one and beyond. So I feel he did need to play. Yes, there is that risk. You are never getting past an injury risk. Okay. You're never getting past. I've seen guys go down with injury after getting hit on the sidelines when they weren't playing. So injuries are a part of the game. Injuries are a part of life. You can't avoid that completely. Do your job. Tell Ben to get rid of the ball. Don't do what he did that third down pass to Ebron. That might have been a little bit of Ben being Ben. I feel you're more likely to get injured from not playing than you are from playing. What I mean by that is if you're not in rhythm, if you're not prepared, if you're not experienced, you're putting yourself into a bad spot, and bad things will happen when you're in a bad spot. So I think overall, yes, the risk is palpable. There's no way to define that. Their season is done if Roethlisberger gets hurt. We don't need to talk about Rudolph versus Haskins. If either one of them has to start, they're in trouble, and it's pretty much over, in my opinion. You don't want that, but you can't be any good either if you are constantly trying to slow down what you need to accomplish. If you don't want to put your team together out on the field, what are we even doing this for then? So I think that he needed to get some work, and he did. 15 plays is a lot of plays. So good amount of work. I don't think he even got hit. Well, no, he took that one hit. He seemed to be screaming at the official about at one point, but that's good too. Get some contact, get the competitive juices flowing a little bit. You need that. You don't want to be completely new to everything come week one.
So let me ask you, in terms of the contact aspect, it seems as if they couldn't simulate the first 15 plays, sort of were, ones versus ones, kind of simulated in practice because of the contact element. Is that true? Am I spot on with that?
In practice, two parts to that. Generally, what you're saying, yes. It's either going to be they can only have so many padded practices during camp, but also you're not hitting Ben Roethlisberger and staying on the team beyond that play. So that'd be the last thing you did. They won't hit him. But yeah, again, that's another good reason to get him out there. Contact is good. This is not a pain-free sport. It's not a contact-free sport. The quarterback is going to get hit to a certain degree. Obviously, we were going to kind of whine about the level that you can hit a quarterback anymore, but he's got to take a hit or two. He's got to be able to feel that the next day. That's part of the full experience of playing football. You've got to have that in mind when you're doing what you're doing, and you don't get that. The quarterbacks absolutely do not get that in training camp. So there is something to be said about having the guy, take a shot or two, hopefully nothing big, but get jostled a little bit, get taken to the ground. You have to know what that's like to help determine whether you're going to make the throw. Am I going to take a hit and be able to still deliver a pass when he's this far away? All these nanosecond level decisions that I'm sure Roethlisberger knows, but he doesn't know them within 2021. He doesn't know that with the body that he has today. It's important to have that sense. And I think playing under pressure against guys who can hit you, you need that. Those are the kinds of small levels of experience that I'm talking about that you kind of need to have in order to say that you're fully ready to go out there and play.
I think that's a great point. And I think that's a point a lot of fans, we forget that you're still trying to establish your game every year. Just because you did it a previous season does not mean you're going to necessarily do it the same way. And I think we think it's autopilot from the outside looking in. You still have to work on your craft every single year, and you have to prove to yourself and to your teammates and the coaching staff that you could still do it. You have to still go out there and actually make the throws. You can see the throw, you can see where the throw should go, but you got to actually go out there and make the throws. And the ability of players adjusts every single season, and it adjusts every single week. Timing, touch, rhythm, zip on the ball, all that different stuff adjust week to week, day to day for individuals because they're not machines. Let's stay on Ben real quick as we talk about the game overall. What were some of your other positive things that you saw from Ben Roethlisberger in this game and the offense in general? And who were some of your winners and losers on offense?
Offensively, the winner above anybody else by far is Ben. The zip that he had in his arm, I'm not even sure if that's something that we saw last year. He looked really good. More than anything, he looked confident. He looks determined. And I think to go back to the previous point too, as far as him playing, I wouldn't be surprised if he was the one that said, I want to play. Ben hasn't played meaningful snaps in a preseason game in a long time. Keep that in mind. It wasn't just the non-preseason last year. I don't think he played at all the year before that because his elbow was screwed up going into week one. Before that, I don't even remember. In 2018, if you could tell me Ben played in the preseason or not, I'd love to see that in the comments. I don't remember, but it's been a long time since he played. I think there is a sense of, just my opinion, I think there's a sense of this is it for me. This is the last year I want to play. I want to go out the way that I came in. I want to go guns a-blazing. I want to be Ben Roethlisberger and be at the top of my game when I leave this sport. In my opinion, I think this is going to be the last year for him. He clearly looks more fit, and not that he didn't before, but it's at a higher level, I think, than it's been in the past. He looks thin even with all the body armor that he wears. So his arm looked great. Overall, he made simple pitch and catch decisions. He fought to keep plays alive. That pump fake was classic Ben Roethlisberger. If you've ever gripped a football, if your hands are big enough to get around a football like that, and then thrown your arm forward at full weight and held onto the ball, you probably shouldn't be sitting around talking about football. You should be playing it, because that's an enormous amount of hand strength. Yeah, and shows the elbow strength as well. There's a lot that goes into that action. And as a former crappy quarterback myself, who didn't have huge hands, I couldn't do that. I couldn't even imagine pump faking like that. My pump fake was cradle the ball under my armpit. For Ben to be able to pull back like that, and he faked out everybody, including the cameraman. There's no reason to not think he's throwing the ball. His arm went forward at 100%. He does that right at the time that Freiermuth is cutting back. It shows great chemistry between those two, which is a great thing to see. And Ben threw a perfect pass. That was absolutely perfect. There's no one else that was going to catch that. And it was in the perfect spot for a big kid to go up and get it with big hands. And absolutely. He pulled it in. That's a touchdown from the snap. And Ben created all that on his own. Winner, absolutely. I'll give Freiermuth credit for catching 2 of them on the day. Both of them were excellent throws from the quarterback, but he did exactly what he was supposed to do. Pulled the ball in, looked like he was having a blast in front of a Steelers Heinz Field crowd for the first time in his career. You got to love that. I'll give Ebron this. It was a brutal drop at first. He made some nice plays as the game continued. I really like the fact that they gave him a lot of work. He played for the whole half, I think. Najee Harris, great catch and run from him. Yeah, obviously a highlight play. More than anything, I said this on social media as well. I appreciate a solid running back who knows how to use his body in space, and I will take that over a speed demon any day. Najee Harris, just so people are aware of this, he's not the fastest running back in the NFL. He didn't break plays at Alabama. He's not really going to do that here either. Neither did Le'Veon Bell. Le'Veon Bell was a great running back in 10 to 12-yard increments. Harris is probably going to be something like that. But when you saw Harris catch the ball as quickly as he got upfield, turned his shoulders, he's moving his legs as well as his hands. He's knocking guys' hands away. He has vision. That was a high-end NFL run, in my opinion. I loved what I saw from him. That's a great play. Now, to be honest, I think the Lions probably should have cut that about half as long as it ended up going, but the Lions are a really bad defensive team. They were horrible. I'd feel really bad if I was a Lions fan today. They look like garbage. But Harris, he made the most of the opportunity that he got. That was also on a play-action pass. Throw their offensive line into this as well. I thought they all did well. It was offensively with their starters, they all played very well. It was a high-level game for them. Defensively, I think we saw some good things out of the secondary. Justin Lane, I thought, made a play or two. A loser, though, for me, and this might be the difference between him getting one of the last spots on the team and playing on the practice squad, was Shakur Brown. I thought he had 3 plays that I can recall where he was just like, what are you doing? The biggest one being a blatant and terrible hold on a 2nd and 20 play, at probably 11 yards from the stick. No reason to be holding him in that situation. And on top of that, the ball hit him in the chest, and he didn't catch it. It literally bounced off his chest plate. Yeah. A terrible rep for him. I'm not sure he makes the team anyway, but that's going to be kind of the defining play for him. Not a good look in that regard. Overall, I don't think, maybe somebody else in the comments here can weigh in. I'm not sure I saw anybody else who had a losing performance. But overall, they played well. You're happy with them on both sides of the ball. Late, I think there were a couple issues we saw. Miles Killebrew missed a tackle that led to a huge gain that kind of made the game competitive toward the end. You're not going to see that out of a guy like Killebrew, but he's really there to play special teams. Right. You're happy overall with that performance. I thought it was good. Without question, the best of the 3 that they've played.
Yeah, I thought they were definitely crisp on both sides of the ball. In terms of winners and losers, I like the guys that you stated. I think Balaj was a winner as well.
Yeah, I think he's another guy I've dogged all off season. He's shutting me up.
I think Balaj looked really well, and I think that brings up some questions on Benny Snell. If Benny Snell is going to be on the football team.
What happened to Benny Snell?
I don't know.
What's going on with Benny Snell?
He's on a milk carton. I have
We
no
haven't
idea.
seen him at all. Literally, haven't seen him. There has to be something going on there. And I'm not putting Balaj on the team simply because he had a couple nice plays in preseason games. It's the fact there's no competition.
Yeah, it's
there's
no
nobody
competition.
there.
Yeah,
Benny Snell, snap for snap, Benny Snell statistically is almost eerily the same as Kalen Balaj at this point in their careers. Last year, the two of them, I think, were the only two players that got 100 carries or more and averaged less than 3.2 yards a carry. They were both ineffective as hell. You could not possibly argue that. But they know Snell. They don't know Balaj. Balaj would have to do a lot to come in and knock Benny Snell off the team. I thought, if anything, Balaj was competing with Samuels, which he's barely done anything either. I don't know how you put Samuels on the team. That's not the competition, though. The competition now is Balaj versus Snell. But Snell, I don't know. I hope he's okay. I haven't heard anything of him being injured. We haven't heard anything from him at all. He didn't play in any preseason game, correct? I don't recall.
No, I have not seen him take a snap. And I've not heard any of, especially when you don't hear any of the Twitter sitting in the stands guy.
Yeah.
Right about him.
That and the coaches haven't said anything.
And they haven't said anything. Yes.
Usually to me, and again, this is my opinion, I don't want to speculate, that usually suggests something more of a personal nature, whatever it happens to be. Notice how no one in the media is really questioning why Stephon Tuitt hasn't played. Well, it's because his brother died. So
yeah.
There's something personal at work there that might explain it. I don't know. I hope for the best for Stephon and his family. I hope that he's okay, but he just might not be in the frame of mind to play. The fact that they haven't said anything about Benny Snell at all, it kind of suggests to me that people know that there is something and they're not going to touch it. So at the same time, though, then, I don't know what you do with him. He practiced. You can't put him on the PUP list. They're not going to put him on IR. Probably going to cut him. And Balaj, I think, has shown, Balaj looked like he was playing with a sense of urgency last night. And we have not seen that from him. He ran hard.
He looked frisky.
Yeah, I thought, okay, I don't think Jalen Samuels belonged on the team anyway. I didn't think Balaj would be the guy to knock him off. But if you're going with three backs, right now, obviously it's Harris, it's McFarland, and it's going to have to be Balaj. There's nobody else. I don't think Samuels has done enough at any point to suggest he should continue to be on the roster. And he hasn't done anything against scrubs to suggest that he belongs out there again. So I think it's the end of the line for him. But Snell just wasn't there. I think it was a race of four, and it's more that Samuels is the guy out.
Let's pivot back to Ben real quick. And you were talking about Ben's arm strength. Was there a throw that you can point to that was a good illustration of his arm strength and the crispness of his arm and just how different his arm strength is from last year?
Talking about arm strength, we oftentimes equate distance with that. When they're throwing bullets, the short stuff on longer angles, that's really where arm strength is a factor. It's not simply Joe Flacco winding up his catapult arm and winging the thing 75 yards down the field. It's how hard you're throwing it to eliminate the possibility that a defender can get in there and knock it away. To me, the three arm strength throws that Ben showed was that third down throw to Ebron on the move, off balance. That was a bullet. He put that on the money on a good line, and Ebron should have caught the ball. Call it, it doesn't matter if it was completed or not. Ben did his job on that play. It was a great throw. Both throws to Freiermuth, I felt he put on a line. There's a small window there, but he has it. Somebody mentioned in the comment that he didn't pump fake. He decided as he was winding up to not throw the ball. At least one of them, the pump fake to Freiermuth that we saw, Freiermuth is running a double move. He faked inside. That's when Ben pumped it. He's selling that inside move to open him up. Ben wound up and then delivered a bullet to him just because it's hard to make that elongated of a motion get set and then throw. That's all arm. He doesn't have time to set his feet again and throw it. That's all arm strength. And he put that in a very tight window, a perfect spot, and that thing was humming. I mean, he put that with some juice on it. He can still throw. There's no doubt in my mind he can still throw. A lot of people are going to claim as well that the big pass that he had to Deontay Johnson down the field, well, he just lobbed it out there that, no arm strength. He's got to hit him on the run. The safety is over the top of Johnson at that spot. Where Ben put the ball is exactly where Johnson needs to catch it. You don't have the top off of a defense every single time a guy goes deep. It doesn't happen that way. Ben threw that ball at that spot deliberately, and Johnson knew it was coming. Johnson even looked to see where the safety was when the ball was on the way. That's how he knew that the safety is going to be bearing down on him. Johnson adjusts to it, puts his body exactly where he needs to make the catch. That's a great throw. That's not an arm strength throw, but that's a precision throw. It's a read throw. Three of them right there. He only threw the ball 10 times. Three of them are high level, at least, or four of them, I should say, at least are high level throws, in my opinion.
Yeah.
The strength component of it is important, but it's a quarterback is going to have to make all of those throws to have a successful game. And Ben showed that he's able to do that.
Yeah, I think I text you right when he made the throw to Freiermuth in the red zone that was a great throw, great ball placement.
It's on the nuts. I mean, it doesn't come better than that.
This is great ball placement, making Freiermuth turn away from the defender back shoulder where he was the only guy that could get it. He fit it in a tight window. And, when you're talking about arm strength, that's where it really shows up, is in the red zone, in that reduced area where you really have to hum the ball with accuracy to beat world-class athletes that are closing.
You have to be 6-man zone as well.
Exactly.
They're all back there. A lot of arms back there.
And they're
your
watching
guys
you.
Too.
Yeah, exactly. And you got to have, that's accuracy and arm strength. And also, as it was explained to me in the past before, is a good measure of arm strength is when you can throw the ball with speed and accuracy with a dirty platform. Meaning, when people are at your feet or around your waist, where you can't necessarily dig in. Anybody can throw the ball in a clean pocket. I mean, that is not a measure of arm strength. That's just a measure of whatever. Throwing on your knees. When you said Joe Flacco in the catapult throw, when you see these guys at the combine on their knees trying to throw it 80 yards in a bucket, who cares? Nobody's going to make that throw. Like those drills.
Skills competition. It's about functional ability to deliver a hot pass into a narrow window. That's tough to do. Ben showed absolutely that he's capable of doing that. And I mean, he had a little bit of time, but on the pump fake in particular, he had to step up for that. The throw to Ebron, he double backed like twice. He wrong turned on those, got set and threw a great pass. It was classic Ben. That had me excited more than anything else.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to, throw the ball all the time with a clean platform. You're just not. And so if you can deliver the ball with accuracy and power when you're in a muddled, dirty pocket, then that's an example of arm strength. I thought Ben really looked good. And in terms of a harbinger of things to come, I think Steeler Nation should be encouraged about just how well Ben Roethlisberger looked in the game. Before we jump into another main topic of the show about the green dot, I'm not going to say what I was thinking when I say the green dot, but if I'm 51 years old, so when you say green in a title, just think about what I'm thinking about when I say green. You should know it, Neal. You might be, or Neal's like, maybe what is he talking about?
I'm afraid. You set it up like it's obvious, and I'm not sure if it's obvious to me.
Okay, but it's I might put it in the chat. Any surprise cuts you can see? Because I think we're both anticipating that Benny Snell is going to get cut. I don't know if that would rank as. I think that would be a surprise cut. Any surprise cuts?
The surprise is relative. I think if you are really super invested in the team right now, your threshold for surprise is going to be a lot higher than other people's would.
I would agree.
I don't know if any name guys get cut. I would say this, Arthur Millette, simply because I think we're seeing great things out of James Pierre, which I think they wanted to have some insurance there in case they needed some help with Pierre. And I'm not sure that Millette is the nickel guy either. I really like what they've done with Antoine Brooks in that spot. But interestingly enough, this brings up a good point. Mike Tomlin mentioned this week that the variety of different nickel situations that they are viewing. That's not something that he's mentioned before. And we also saw last night Cam Sutton move inside with Pierre coming to handle outside in nickel situations. It's a common misnomer that people think the nickel back automatically plays inside. There's no rule that says you have to do that. If your third best cornerback it is an outside guy like James Pierre is, and you have one of your other two that can play inside, why wouldn't you do that? The Steelers did that with William Gay back in the day. Gay was probably a better inside guy than he was an outside guy, and he started on the outside. And in nickel, they brought in Antoine Blake. Why I just totally blanked on his name for some reason. I'm expecting backlash for hearing that name, but they put Blake outside and they moved Gay inside for nickel situations. So Gay ended up playing what's traditionally seen as the nickel position for them, but that's not what the nickel back is. So they experimented with that a little bit last night. I think that's smart, just because I think Cam Sutton can get the job done inside, and I think James Pierre is an emerging good cornerback on the outside. So maybe that's the nickel position. Maybe that's something that pushes Mollett off the roster if he doesn't have tangible teams value to him. Right now, it's always hard to tell in the preseason what they think of special teams, but I don't know. That would be a guy I would think of potentially as being the guy to go. Cowart, the signee from the Bears, I could see them potentially looking to cut him earlier. Maybe he can catch on somewhere else. I don't think anything is going to really be a surprise at this point, though. We have a pretty good sense of what the team is. There weren't a whole lot of real competitions for positions. At the depth level, there always is, but you never know. With a massive practice squad, the way that they have, and the rules having been grossly relaxed on that, a lot of these guys are probably going to end up signing back with them anyway. So we'll see how that all works out. But I don't think this round there'll be any surprises.
We were going to, and maybe if we have some time, we might jump into the starting 11. You did a lot of talking about the nickel corner. Do you think that's established, who the nickel guy is? Or because it kind of felt like when you were talking about Mike Tomlin's comments that it could fluctuate based on situation, which, if that's what he meant, seems weird to me. As in, typically you have a third corner, whether he's going to play, like you said, outside or inside. Has that third corner in sub-package football been determined?
I think, honestly, to the point that Mike discussed this, I think there's going to be a couple guys in different situations. I really do. I think it makes the most sense to build out that depth situationally, which is to say that probably a little bit of both. You have a lot of good guys that can fill in the situations, and you don't have one guy that can play all situations. I think that's where they are, which would be the saving grace for Mollett probably. But I like what they can do with Brooks. I appreciate the versatility between the two of them in different situations. That might be what they look to do. What that really kind of means is they don't have a nickel per se. They have a couple of them. Yeah. I think that might be what they end up doing. Maybe this is a year they take one more cornerback than usual. I could see that. So with that, it's tough to say what their nickel package is. I think they have a nickel-based defense, and they're going to play that with a lot more versatility than they have in the past. And that's something I kind of wish that they did 3-4 years ago. If they had more of that, they'd be able to have competed with an offense like the Patriots. These 12 heavy fronts with multifaceted tight ends and running backs, they can't handle that with a traditional put another cornerback on the field and team just shifts around to put their guy on outside linebackers like the Patriots always do. Right. This gives them a bit more versatility with that. A guy like Brooks is key to that because he's a run defender as well as a pass protector or a pass defender. So when you have that kind of versatility to match up with an opponent that plays kind of a muddle running back, H-back, tight end position, the way a lot of teams do nowadays, you have that kind of versatility to cover all of it. But not every team does. So it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. I think that's probably the direction they're going to go in.
Before we jump into behind the green dot and what it really means, see that's what I was talking about.
And you were right. I don't know what that means.
Yeah, behind the green. well,
am I stupid or?
No, I'm substituting dot for door. So if you look up that on your computer, it's a famous movie from back in the day. Anyway, let's just
I took a film class once.
let's just shift to another topic before we jump into the behind the green dot or door controversy. Somewhat controversial. I don't know if controversy is the right term to discuss it. With the emergence of Freiermuth, I don't know if emergence is the right word. What we've seen in the third game of Freiermuth, do we think we're going to see more 12 personnel?
I absolutely think we'll see more 12 personnel. I don't think it had anything to do with last night. They couldn't run 12 last year. They didn't have anybody to run 12. Vance McDonald was on a walking cane by week 4. I mean, there was nothing they could do. And that, more than anything, not the play calling, that is what was the real issue as far as versatility went with their offense. They invested a second-round pick in a tight end, and they're basically going to make him play, ready or not, this season because they need to have 2 tight ends out on the field. Ebron played deep into the game, I think, because they need to get both of those guys going, and they need to get them on the field so they can run more things. I get ripped for this all the time. I was not a big fan of the Freiermuth pick. I am liking what I'm seeing of him so far. Yeah, I don't know if that means that he's a 110 target guy. Ebron's going to get 3 times as many passes as he will. It's that's the way it's going to be. Can Freiermuth get out there and block the edge? Can he set the edge? Can he climb and get to the second level on outside zone, on stretch runs? That is his value this year. It's not catching perfect passes in the end zone from a quarterback that throws at 70 miles an hour on a dot. Let's not confuse what his real value is. He loves being the red zone guy. He loves the stat that he's never dropped a pass in the red zone, which seems to be more like a job requirement as opposed to a point of achievement. I'm happy he hasn't dropped a red zone pass. Great. You should catch the ball. It's not being thrown at you from that far away. All of that said, can he block? That's the main issue. If he can block, they can run 12 personnel. If they can run 12 personnel, there's a lot more things that they're going to be able to do than what they have been able to do. In many ways, I think Kendrick Green is the most valuable rookie for them in many ways, just because he has to play above probably where you'd think that he was going into this season. Harris is a stud. Harris is going to get the ball a lot. He's going to be productive. Freiermuth is not far behind Green as far as the value of the Steelers rookies this season. He needs to catch up and play well in order for them to do a lot of things offensively. He's going to affect a lot of other guys, in particular 2 tackles who haven't played their position with the team recently. So you put all of that together. I like what we're seeing of Freiermuth. He is critically important to what they're going to do, and it's not just going to be catching the ball. He has to be a 3-down tight end in order for them to do everything that they're going to need to do offensively. I can't talk.
No, it's all right. It's all right. I think, if that's the case, and staying with the term harbinger of things to come, then it's a good harbinger of what we saw in the preseason game. Before we jump into the subject of the green dot, one thing I did want to say about Green is Green was collecting pancakes yesterday. He was putting linebackers, getting on the second level and putting linebackers directly on their backs and getting pancakes. It was syrup blocks. It was straight syrup blocks. And Neal, that statement of a job requirement as opposed to achievement, that's some of the funniest shit I've heard. Like in the last year, that's just
there's just so much of that. It just drives me nuts. And social media, people are making the guy out to be Gronkowski. Well, he's never dropped a pass in the red zone. Great. To be honest with you, Ebron, who has terrible hands, probably hasn't dropped a whole lot of passes in the red zone. It's not like it happens 15 times a game. So you get 10 opportunities. I hope you catch the ball 10 times. That's what you should do.
Right. It's like applauding breathing. He can breathe.
Great. I mean, it's a society full of compliments for relatively mediocre achievements. I get it, and it's certainly better than the alternative. I know that, but
exactly,
let's not crown the guy yet.
Yeah, let's not crown the guy.
He's a rookie. Period. There's no way around that.
Now let's jump into the green dot. Explain the green dot. And is there any significance that Schobert has the green dot and not Devin Bush?
The green dot is the NFL's rule that only one defensive player can have a radio mic in their helmet. That is represented by the green dot. So that helmet is the one that has the radio mic in it. Who wears that helmet is up to the team, obviously. The guy that's going to wear that is going to be seen as the defensive aligner of the unit that's out there. And I would say in this situation, what it means more is they expect Joe Schobert to play more often than Devin Bush. And what that really means overall is Bush probably is getting relegated to second string status in their dime package. Dime package being with them, typically 4 defensive linemen, 1 linebacker, and did I say that right?
Yeah,
6 defensive
DBs,
backs.
yeah, 4-1-6.
3, yeah. That's probably what it is. Now, how we define dime is typically, I don't want to say old-fashioned, but it means 6 defensive backs. A guy like Antoine Brooks, he tends to kind of play. Hilton was like this as well. They play at a linebacker's depth a lot of the time. So having the versatility to have the guy that can play in the box as well as back, that really kind of suggests, yes, it traditionally and for the sake of convenience, you're going to call it dime, but it's just a small linebacker that's in there.
Right.
Having the dot means Schobert is the guy that's going to play in all of those packages, in my opinion. I don't think he's going to have a ton more snaps than Devin Bush, but we've talked about this on the show, Lance. Guys coming off ACL surgery don't come back fully in 8 months. Right. They just don't. Right. We've seen Bush in coverage to this point, and yes, to a degree, the play action rollout, the flood, the backside flood, that's kind of Bush league in preseason. When you're not scheming for guys, you don't have that kind of thing drawn up. They tend to be successful offensively doing it. So I don't want to say that Bush got beat on a lot of these. They're team coverage plays. They're not just single man on coverage. So I don't want to say that he screwed up with the result of the play. What I'm talking about when it comes to the preseason is how they look. How are they moving? How are they handling what's being given to them? Not so much the result of the play. Bush doesn't look like the Bush that was drafted 10 overall. And I don't expect him to, probably at least until October, November, simply because the body needs that much time to heal after surgery, that kind of surgery in particular. What's interesting is an ACL tear to a common football fan seems like death. If it happened to you and me, we'd get surgery. We'd be walking in 2 weeks. We don't play professional football. We don't cut on that ligament. We're not having to do the things that Bush has to do with that joint in order to be a high-end, highly successful linebacker in the NFL. He's not going to just get that back. So I think more than anything, Schobert having the green dot says really that he's the guy that they're going to count on in sub packages more so than Bush. It's not a question anymore of Robert Spillane. Schobert is going to be essentially the captain of that defense, the back 7 for sure. So it does have a level of prominence. It's also quite a bit to say the level of faith that they obviously have in Schobert to come in midway through camp and be the guy that's going to make those calls, those alignments. To me, it suggests that they have a high level of faith in him, but it probably also means they're not doing a whole lot of changing that other guys aren't aware of. Just because he's the guy with a mic doesn't mean he's the only guy that's making a call. Cam Hayward points stuff out all the time. You see them when they're getting down. They're calling out their assignments all the time. They have an experienced secondary. Minkah Fitzpatrick is in the middle of it all. He's making calls. Your linebacker, though, is the one that has the easiest time to communicate in front and in back. So you're going to give that to a linebacker. The question is, how much are they utilizing it? You're going to utilize it at some point. But to me, it kind of almost suggests that it's not all that much of a factor for them. They got to give it to somebody. And Schobert's the guy that they see as being on the field the most often, in the position to communicate the most effectively to everybody that's on the field.
Yeah, I mean, when I saw that he was going to have the green dot, and that's a great explanation of what it is and how it impacts sub-package football. and that the fact that the green dot is typically not going to come off the field. They're going to play 3 downs. They're not going to come off the field. They're going to make
Right.
the calls. They're always going to be playing. I think what I gleaned from it was if he could come in and get the green dot basically in a day, it was almost like a day. It was like the next day he got the green dot, or maybe 2 days later. What it told me was this isn't a big deal. That, it's, of course we need to talk about it because, it's a communication piece.
Significance.
There's some significance,
it's
but
not as big as people are probably thinking.
It's not as big. It's because it's like he's learning a lot on the fly. And so he's learning the verbiage, the calls, his assignments, everything else. That's more important than whether he's the dot or not. And it shows me that along with all the other things that he has to learn to prepare to get ready, that the dot may not be that important. I think the thing it also showed me is he's a smart football player because they trust him to do it very quickly. And the coaches are doing a hell of a job in getting him ready to feel comfortable to be able to do it that quickly. And it also illustrates that there's a commonality amongst defensive concepts across the National Football League. Because if there wasn't, there wouldn't be any possibility that a guy in 2 or 3 days could come in and be the green dot guy, essentially, the communications hub on a defense that quickly and everybody be confident. He's a competent football player. He's smart. He kind of understands what they're trying to do schematically and on defense, and they felt comfortable with it. He's a pro. They threw it to him. Do you think possibly when Bush is right that who wears the dot can switch?
They absolutely can switch that, and they have switched it. And to point out as well, in case this needs to be mentioned, it is literally a green dot on the helmet. So it's a circular dot. Yes. It's a sticker or a bit of a sticker that's painted green. They need to be able to see that to know which one should have a microphone in it. That's what the distinction, why they call it a green dot. It's literally a green dot that's on the helmet, on the top part of the crown of the helmet. I don't know how well you can pick it out on TV when they're at the regular TV angle. But when you see them up close, it's super, super bright. You know which one it is on the sideline. That's what they're looking to kind of establish. I agree with you, though, Lance. Both of these things can be true. It can be a point of confidence in Schobert as well as something that isn't all that big of a deal for the team. They have a veteran group on defense. Yes, you've got Mel Ingram. Alex Highsmith hasn't played a whole lot, but there's a lot of experience on that defense. When you put Tuitt, Hayward, and Alu together, that's a lot of NFL experience. Their secondary is Joe Hayden has played a lot of football games. Minka has been in charge of that defense on the back end for 2 years now. They know what they're doing. I don't think they need Schobert to line them up like it's Madden. That isn't essential for them. There are things that come up. A lot of times what I've heard is they're giving the call, of course, but they can hand signal the call as they're telling Schobert in it just to make sure that everybody has it. Schobert probably is the guy in the huddle that's calling it out. The quarterback calls that out in the offensive huddle. On defense, you're giving that out to a bunch of people, and they all have kind of their sub-assignments that come with it. So It's not like Schobert, obviously he isn't a quarterback, but it's probably the closest equivalent to a quarterback on defense. At the same time, Minka on the back end, and Ryan Clark was the same way. Dick LeBeau talked often about how smart Ryan Clark was in making sure guys were aligned and seeing the right things. They're also making calls during the play. Defense changes, okay? It's fluid. You have assignments based on where guys are, not just a set thing that you decide to do at the beginning of the play. You have to move with what the offense is doing to you. Those calls are dot agnostic, okay? It has nothing to do with who's wearing a dot. Everybody has to
dot
talk.
Agnostic.
So everybody has a responsibility as far as communicating goes, and you see that up and down. When a ball is thrown into the seam, two guys are talking about who's going where. They're mentioning crossers, they're mentioning deep flags, things like that come up all the time. You can't hear it, but you could a little bit last year during plays. They intentionally don't have microphones that close to the field just so other teams can't study what they're saying while a play is going on. But it does happen.
The Patriots have microphones on fields to
I'm
hear.
sure they do. I'm sure they have cameras everywhere, and they're inside the Bengals press box for some reason because they're doing a narrative story on the life of an advanced scout. Advanced scouts have the most boring, uninteresting job in the world. It's just hilarious. They got a sponsor to come in and support this a day in the life of an advanced scout job, which, if you know what that is, nobody inside the know thinks that what the Patriots were doing was legitimate just because of like an advanced scout. Really, may as well be the hot dog vendor. I mean, it's not nearly as exciting as you think it is, because they're not going to tell you anything that they're doing. They can't. Advanced scout, by the way, is not advanced like it's a higher end of scouting. An advanced scout is future opponents, and that could be next week. That could be next year. Yes. And if you put advanced scouts in a box or in a stadium to watch a team that you might play next year with a first-year coach, that's allowed. There's nothing wrong with that. You can't film it, though, and the Patriots have a problem with that. They couldn't help themselves while they're doing this legitimate story to film what Zach Taylor of the Bengals, the first-year coach of the Bengals at that point, was doing on the sidelines. Absolutely hilarious. Bill Belichick is it's unbelievable.
It's definitely Bill Belichickian. Listeners, we're getting close to the end of the show, and I want to give a little bit of room for Neal to talk about Juju. There were some things that he wanted to bring up about Juju, but I want to get into a quick rant real quick, and I'll keep it really quick because I do want you to answer the question of Edward James Gardner. Big up. Thank you, Edward James Gardner, for hopping to the program. That's a new name. Please, sir, Mr. Gardner, like and subscribe to the show. Welcome to the program. Here's my quick rant. And we do it sometimes, too, because we're guilty. Sometimes we use 12 personnel. Sometimes we use cloud. We use flood. We use different jargon to describe different things on the show. And I want to give a big shout out to a former professor of mine from Carnegie Mellon named Sumitra Muskerjee. Sumitra was the most intelligent person that I ever met. And big up to all of the incoming Tartans. Big up to Michos, who's going to Carnegie Mellon and enrolling and moving in today. Sumitra was so intelligent because he could take the most complex Bayesian statistical concept and explain it in a way in which a 5-year-old could understand. He had the ability to explain it for a professor, for a grad student, for a high school student, a grammar school student, and a preschooler. He was an expert communicator. He could simplify the most complex of concepts. Here's my thing. When I listen to other shows, we do a pretty good job of it, I think. Other shows and other guys that do podcasts throw out 5,000 football terms, and I think they think it makes them sound smarter. But in fact, it makes them sound dumber. The point of it is to explain concepts clearly so that your audience understands it. So I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to strive to do more this year, not use terms like 12 personnel or 0-1 or stuff like that. Just explain it simple and true so fans and listeners of the show get clear pictures of what we're trying to describe. So if you're hearing a show, guys using the mesh point and this, that, the stem, look, that's pointless. That's more of the host trying to gloss himself and say that I'm smart, you, the listener, are not as smart. Look, this is about all of us trying to learn more about the game and us bringing you some of our insights. We're not football professors. That's not the point. The point is to have a good time, talk about the Steelers, and share our opinions with you. So that's my rant for the week. Neal, break down what you want to talk about Juju.
That's a good one. I'm not even sure I could top that if I tried. I would add this, though, Lance, just because I think it's important. There are some terms that are the best ways to explain it. It's on us, and please call us out if we're not doing it. It's on us to explain a term that we use if it isn't properly understood. 12 personnel means 2 tight ends. It's easier to say it that way than it would be to say something else. But yes, there's a lot of jargon that gets used. We don't want to have a show in which we think that we're communicating to a general manager of an NFL team. We're not scouts. We're not at that level. We don't need to use those terms because that's not the world that we're in. We want to talk about things that people can understand very simply. And one of the things that we can absolutely understand is the value that Juju Smith-Schuster brings to the Steelers. There was a play last night. It was a simple off guard, looked like a draw to Kalen Ballage. That Juju Smith-Schuster, they were in 11 personnel. So that's one tight end and one running back. Really, it means 3 wide receivers. Juju is in the slot on this play. He has a man blocking assignment with the slot cornerback. It's a run. Juju braced himself, getting ready to block. The corner that he's responsible for blocking, for marking, read the run, and he came charging down in. Juju recognized that, came down an entire gap, which is a position from where he is over to the line, and cleaned this guy out. Absolutely drilled him. And in doing that, he knocked the guy into 3 other backside pursuers of the play. Ballage carried that for 5 yards. I think he got credit for. He would have gone for maybe 1 if Juju doesn't make that block. The awareness that Juju Smith-Schuster has, the physicality that he has, the willingness that he has to play the game of football is beyond value. I understand that it's not a contract distinction that he's probably going to really benefit from. And I also understand he's not the kind of outside stat machine receiver that we would usually equate with being highly valuable. Juju does those kinds of things really well. He does them willingly. He has a great sense of how to play football for his position. You have to love the guy for that. I understand there is an issue as far as how he kind of carries himself, the whole TikTok thing. He's made TikTok millions upon millions of dollars, I'm sure, at this point. I'm sure he's getting paid to some degree for that. I also get that people don't like that kind of showmanship when it comes to sports today. Look, we're old if we think that. I just turned 42 last week. I get it. It kind of bothers me as well. I don't think he should be dancing on logos. I'm hoping he's going to kind of not do that anymore. But the reality is the guy's a great football player between the whistles, and that's really more of what we should care about than anything else. If he dances, fine. I'll get over it. It's not a big deal. He's a great football player. I love watching him play. That play last night was absolutely fantastic. And if you love football too, and you saw that and you watched Juju the entire way, you would have reacted the same way I did, which was literally get off my couch, screaming at the TV, cheering him on. It was great. I love to see it.
As a 51-year-old man, your next transition, Neal, is you're just not going to pay attention to guys dancing on logos on TikTok.
I just have to hear about it, to be honest. I don't go on TikTok. I'm not somebody that TikTok needs to run a successful business. So It's not like I have any value going to TikTok anyway. I hear about it from people. That's all.
And before we get out of here, I hate we got to this question last, but it was brought up pretty late in the show. And thank you, Edward, for staying on so long. Would it be crazy to want Banner and Moore as the starting tackles? In other words, Moore or Chucks? And has Moore shown that he could be better than Chucks? And you kind of touched on this last week about the impact of starting Moore.
I don't think it's crazy at all. But what's really crazy is, and I had somebody look this up on ESPN Stats and Info Solutions. The Patriots had a guy last year who ended up starting a game at left tackle for them as a 4th-round rookie, or maybe he was a 5th rounder, I forget. That's the only time that's happened in the last 30 years. So what that really says is the value of finding a starting level offensive tackle, in particular to play left tackle in the NFL as a rookie, is pretty much unheard of. The fact that we're having that conversation about Dan Moore has to really excite you if you're a Steelers fan. I love that kid. I think he's great. He's going to be good. I don't think he is ahead of Chucks today. I think there is a level of experience that we don't see factored into preseason games. Again, they're not scheming. The defense isn't scheming. It's just straight up football. It's as if they just gathered 2 teams, got together, and they're throwing the ball around based on the things that they want to do. Moore has looked very, very good, in my opinion. He's a much better athlete than I thought he was. He's strong. He had a good physical makeup. We knew that going into it, and that was part of the appeal, I think, for the Steelers. He's a long kid. He's strong. He plays with great length, and that's a value to a tackle for sure. He's going to be a lot better than Chucks will be. And the gap that they're at right now, I don't think is very big, but Chucks has to be your starter. Chucks has been out there. He's the guy that they know. Chooks, excuse me. He's the one who's been out there. They know what they're getting from him. They know what they have to scheme with their offensive lines when they're at a point that they are scheming. They're not doing that right now. Scheming is to say, these guys are really bad at this, so we're going to do this. When you know your players and your players understand how that works on a day-to-day basis, you know what you have, and they don't know that of Moore right now. This is not an insult to Moore at all. I'm not saying that he didn't play well, but right now it's going to be Chooks and Banner. The veteran aspects that they have are going to serve the whole offensive line better. But I'll tell you this, 365 days from now, I think we're talking about a great starting offensive tackle in Dan Moore, and I'm looking forward to that.
So before we get out of here, Neal, what should Steeler fans look for on the wire this week?
I don't know. Just really a lot of probably roster prep. Let's see who we think might be the ones to go. There's another 5. Is it 5? Getting cut Tuesday by 4 p.m. Eastern. I don't know if it's 5 or more than that, but there's another cut before the next game. So we'll look into who we think that might be. We'll look into to kind of get a sense probably of the running back position. Now that Lance, you and I talked about that a bunch offline and on the show. I think there's something going on there. I'm curious if there is more to it. So overall, I think we have a good sense of what the team is going to be going into this last game. So projections going into week 1. I'm excited for it. I love August. I love preseason football, but all of it leads up to the anticipation of week 1, and that's what we're getting into now.
Steeler fans, before we get out of here, I just want to encourage and thank you guys. I want to encourage you guys to be safe. That's one. And I want to thank you guys for hopping on the program. A lot of new subscriptions last week. So make sure you're subscribing and you're liking to the show on YouTube. A lot of views for last week's show. So things are starting to ramp up. I'm feeling excited about the show. I'm feeling excited about the season. And it looks like we're going to have a season. But continue to make sure that the Steelers do have a season in person by doing what you need to do to stay healthy and to avoid COVID-19. And my prayers and thoughts are to anyone out there who has contracted COVID-19. Hopefully you're doing safe. A member of our show who's listening today contracted COVID, and I'm glad that he's safe. I'm not going to say his name. It's in the chat. But I'm glad that he's safe. And again, travel blessings to all the college students and everybody that's traveling to their campuses, and to anyone that has a young child at school in this fall. It's a really stressful time for parents with their kids at school with everything that's going on. But we got some Steeler football. 3-0 is it a harbinger of things to come. And we got Steeler football, and it's exciting. But with that, we're going to conclude the program. And as always, tune in, tell a friend, and subscribe.